train, he's shocked. No, what is this? I have never taken meat. Abhay looked at his host in astonishment. I never expected this at Jagannath Puri. Ashamed, his host said, I didn't know. I thought this was the best. Abhay pacified the man. Okay, we have the video coming on. Thank you, Kadamakana Prabhu. Yeah. So this is Mukunda Goswami Maharaj as Murli Bafam. Prabhu, we can't hear the audio. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, we can't hear.
I think Prabhu is trying to get the audio going.
I'm not sure, is it a YouTube link or?
Prabhu, I think Kadamba Kanana Prabhu has to unmute himself.
Prabhu,
Okay,
Prabhu,
yeah.
please.
Yeah. That one.
So Prabhupada started out in the Bowery, which is kind of a prophetic name. It's kind of like Matchless Gifts was sort of a prophetic name. It became very popular as a matchless gift. And the Bowery has an interesting history. The word Bowery, I think it comes from originally a Dutch or English word bower. And according to a dictionary, the word bower is a pleasant, shady place under trees or climbing plants in a garden wood. And it's interesting that sometimes Radha and Krishna would sit in a bower in a forest setting, and they would engage in their transcendental pastimes there. So the Bowery has kind of a significant name, and the interesting thing about the Bowery is it's an area of Manhattan, one of the boroughs of New York, and at one time, like starting in about 1910, it was a very fashionable street. And it had elevated trains before subways. They were called. It was called the Third Avenue L for elevated, and it was considered very fashionable. Today, it's become sort of the Skid Row. The Bowery, when Prabhupada was there, there were a lot of immigrants in that part of the world. They came from Italy and Holland and Ukraine, and in fact the neighborhoods are still there. They call this place, one place is called Little Italy, another place is called Chinatown, another place is, there's even a place called Little Australia. I don't know, I'd never heard about it, I read about it, but it was very close to Little Italy. And in Chinatown they had big celebrations in Little Italy and in Chinatown with fireworks sometimes and parades and all kinds of $100 bill garlands on St. Vincent, who is the patron saint of somewhere in Italy. So that's the bit of the history of the Bowery and Lower Manhattan. And Prabhupada used to walk to Chinatown to get bitter melon because it was the only place he could find it. I mean, only place that was relatively nearby. And he used to walk there and get bitter melon because it's one of the key things that the Prabhupada liked to eat. So that's what the Bowery, and I think today the Chinatown has migrated northward, and that building that Prabhupada was in is owned by Chinese people, I think. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the case. So it was very difficult. I met Prabhupada in the Bowery because I got the address from a friend of mine, and I told him a little bit about myself. He was very friendly, kind of grandfatherly, like my father's father, grandfather, paternal grandfather. And I told him that I was a pianist. And he said, well, I'll teach you how to play the piano for Krishna. And I thought to myself, play the piano for Krishna? How's that possible? I mean, a flute I could understand, a sitar, but piano? I mean, who's ever heard of a piano being played in India? So anyway, he was, but he was very friendly. Even though I didn't think that was possible, I decided to come back and see what it was all about. So I did that. I came back, and that's how I got interested. It took me probably a year or two before I really developed the missionary spirit. And I went to England, and a lot of things happened between then. But I think it was a combination of Prabhupada himself and the books that he wrote. He had the 3 Bhagavatams, first canto, in 3 volumes. And I bought the books from him, I think the second time I met him. And I was so enthralled by what was said on the pages of those books that I never put them down. Even I remember walking on the street, even across the street against the traffic lights. I was completely oblivious to what else was going on. So it was a combination of the books and the person who wrote the books, Prabhupada, who or compiled the books at least. I had mentally decided that this was the path that I would take, that I would follow. I still, and there was a guy that was staying with Prabhupada. You probably heard about this, and he was kind of a strange character, unusual person, but he had the attitude. He was about 18 years old then. And he had the attitude of doing whatever was needed. And I thought the guy was acting like a slave, kind of. Like every time Prabhupada wanted water, he would run to the back of the loft and get some water. And I just thought, wow, this guy is really over the top. I don't want to be like that. And so that was my initial thing. And anyway, there's a long story about what followed. We're not going to go into it now because we don't have a lot of time, but that's my story. And my offering, I probably won't have time to read it because it's very short. It's kind of boring, actually. That's my thought. So thank you for listening. Hare Krishna. Huh? Well, the Bowery is a pretty funky place. I mean, I saw literally drunks laying on the street, and they were picked up by the ambulance and taken away. Sometimes they were dead. It was a very strange place, and the loft was 5 stories up, so I had to climb the stairs to get to see Prabhupada. And it was a very dingy kind of place. There were rafters and cobwebs and bare light bulbs hanging down from the ceiling. And I thought that somehow I'd been to other Swamis, and I thought that this was a genuine article, that he was the real thing, because he had decided to. I mean, he'd been into a few other places, but not very many. So I thought this was the real thing, that he had somehow or other decided to take up residence in a very sort of dilapidated place with a very strange roommate. Who was, later on we found out that he was kind of wild. I'm aggressively wild. So that's how I met Prabhupada. And I remember the first thing I said to him was that I have a tambura. That was my 4 words of introduction. I have a tambura. I thought that was pretty neat, that I had a tambura. So it was an Indian instrument. So the first thing he said to me was, then bring it, like that. And he made a gesture with his right hand like that, then bring it. So the next time I came, I brought my tambura. And I was trying to figure out what Prabhupada was chanting, what kind of notes it was, and what kind of a scale it was, and all that, because I was a musician, but I couldn't figure it out. anyway, I brought my tambour and I sat real close to him, trying to hear what he was doing. And I got the books and I read the books, and I became committed, sort of mentally, that was the right path for me to follow for a long time forward. I was kind of a searcher, I guess, a seeker, and the so-called holy men I'd met before were kind of deficient, I thought, and so this was a good beginning. So I think that's all I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I think, yes?
Can you share some other things that Prabhupada personally spoke to you?
What he spoke to me?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't say much to me. He was kind of like, there were about 5 or 6 people in the loft, kind of listening, and most of them were kind of dingy-looking, alternative types of people, and they weren't the sort of people that I would make friends with very easily, because I was kind of a straight guy, and I mean, comparatively. I didn't have long hair, anyway. So at one point he announced that we're going to have a love feast. And I thought that was a very strange thing for a sadhu to say, a love feast. I mean, that's kind of like hippie language, I guess, love feast. But anyway, he had one. And that was the first time I ever had prasadam. I don't know who cooked it or what it was or who made it. And he was holding a bowl under his left arm and dishing out this prasadam to people. And they were eating it. They liked it. It was different. It was really different. I mean, the spicing was stuff that they had never tasted before. So there were chickpeas and some kind of batter and a few other things. And that was the love feast. And everyone became, I mean, Prabhupada exhibited the nature of a gracious host. He wasn't talking philosophy. He was just literally forcing people to take more. They would finish one plate and he would say, take some more. He wouldn't even say, take some more. He just put more on the plate. And that was how it started out. And then people, I think some of them became attached to that food, that prasadam, and started going to 2nd Avenue when Prabhupada was ensconced there. So from the very start, from the simple beginnings, I'm sure that some of this is on video. And there's a series that Bhakti Charu, the late Bhakti Charu, made of what he thought the loft was like, and people were sitting. But Prabhupada didn't say much to me. You were asking what he said to me, but he had a big book out in front of him, and he pronounced these Sanskrit shlokas, and I thought, wow, he was wearing glasses, and I thought, this person is really learned. He's not just a holy man from India, but he's really very very versed in this language, and so his lectures were kind of laced with Sanskrit, and I began to develop a feeling, more of a sense that he was a genuine holy man, because it wasn't just that he was from India, he was exotic, and he was older, but there was a philosophy that I thought was very important, and it was being spoken as well as being written down. So that was how I got started.
I think Robert discussed instructions with you when you were about to leave to San Francisco.
Well,
can you say something about that?
What happened was, I told him that I was planning to go to India, and he didn't say very much. And I said, anyone? Do you have any contacts in India? And he gave me the name of somebody, and I don't know. It was one of his printers or something. It wasn't somebody really important, but it was just somebody that knew him and that he knew. And then that's about all that transpired. And then as I was walking away out the door, he said, and just when you're in the West Coast, that's where I was going to leave from, California. This was in New York. He said, when you're in the West Coast, just see if you can start a temple. And I just thought, well, it's an old man's fantasy. I'm never going to be able to do that. But somehow or other, when I went to California, I was driving. It was in a what were they called? Drive-away cars. So it was a delivery service where they paid a very small amount of money to the person who was driving, and you had to pay for the petrol. But it was, other than that, it was a very, very small amount. Anyway, and all those words kept sticking in my mind. Just try to start a temple. I thought, what does that? I mean, what does that mean? But it, somehow or other, even though I didn't know what it meant, it stuck in my mind. And when I got to Oregon, which is on the west coast, just north of California, the state north of California, I stopped to visit an old friend of mine who was in Oregon, and I just made a kind of casual stop to renew our acquaintance, and he started asking me all about why I looked so different, and I didn't think I looked any different, but he did, and he asked me a lot of questions, and what he was following was a guy named Ken Kesey, who had the electric something farm. He was an author. He was actually a pretty famous person. They made a movie out of one of his books, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You may have heard of it. Anyway, he was a follower of Ken Kesey, and he'd gone to these psychedelic kind of happenings that were in San Francisco. And the more he questioned me about the Swami, the more I told him, and how he became very enamored with it. And he said, well, maybe I'll come down to San Francisco when you go down there and meet you and help you. Because I had sort of committed myself to trying to do something for the Swami. I didn't know what Start a Temple was. But I'm saying this partly because I think this at least the vocal part of it is going to New York City. They asked me to do something, but I wasn't able to do it. So that's why I was talking a lot about Manhattan and New York, the borough. So anyway, he was talking, and then at a certain point I decided, well, this is it. I'm not even going to go to India. So I had tickets to go, and I just turned them in and got a refund and decided that I'm just going to start a temple, whatever that means. And that's exactly what happened. This person helped me, and a few other people just pitched in. I mean, it was a magical kind of experience that they didn't know what it was or who we were, and they were just giving money and all kinds of things that helped us, like paint and chairs and carpet and stuff like that. So that was the beginning of the San Francisco temple. And it turned out that there was a very sort of division, you might call it, or kind of a polemic. But there were some right-wing and left-wing people. And when I talked to the right-wing people on the telephone, I heard someone say, what are you doing? Because we were planning this event called the Mantra Rock Dance. And the people in New York thought I was going a little bit excessive into this. They said, why are you going to subject Prabhupada to this? And well, anyways, so that developed. We were considered the left wing, and they were the right wing, because they were New Yorkers, and that's the way New York is. And California is the liberal part of the country. So anyway, it was a very successful event. I mean, it was actually. Prabhupada went there, and he invited the poet called Allen Ginsberg to speak and lead the chant. And he was kind of a hero of the underground at that time. He's passed away now, the late Allen Ginsberg. But he was kind of a famous person. And for him to lead the chanting and to say that Swami was very important and all that it was a very significant event. It happened on a Sunday night, and it was so full of people that were curious that the fire department was there, and they had to turn people away when they came because it was reached its capacity. So should I go on? I mean, I can.
Any more questions? You can ask questions to Maharaj.
Yes.
How many rounds were you chanting?
I wasn't chanting any rounds at that time, and I think Prabhupada didn't even talk about chanting rounds. He just wanted to see where these people were at. That came later, the rounds and the regulated principles and all that. Anything else?
He also gave you some interesting comments or instructions when you left for Montreal.
Oh, well, the only thing he said in Montreal, I mean, in the way of an instruction, was I asked him, what do you have any advice for what we should do when we get to England? And he said, do dramas, because I mean, I kind of thought, well, maybe that makes sense, because after all, England is the land of Shakespeare, And that I just kind of buried in my mind that would happen. We would do some drama. And then he's told his story that didn't seem at all related. And it was about a film that he saw. He used to watch movies when he was younger. And this was a movie of the comedian Charlie Chaplin or Max Linder, one of those two. And the story was that he was dancing in a patio somewhere out of doors at a ball. It was a kind of a party or something. And at some point, he realized that that the seat of his pants was ripped, and it was exposing part of his body. And then the other people that were on the dance floor, as it were, that he was on, thought, this is the latest thing. This is, really, they were all drinking, so they were, all kind of tipsy, you might say. So they all started doing the same thing. They went into the men's room, the bathroom, the men, and they tore their pants exactly how Charlie Chaplin or Max Linder had done it. And they went back and started dancing on the dance floor. And it created kind of a sensation. People were looking at them, they were smiling, they were laughing, and that was it. That was the story. And then as I had left and was walking back to what then was the temple, the former bowling alley in Montreal, I began to wonder why was Prabhupada telling us that story? It came after I was asking him about what techniques should be adopted in England. And then someone said, well, you don't know. And then after a while, we thought and talked, and then we realized that what he was indirectly saying was, if you do something that's unusual, people are going to like it. So that actually happened when we started doing Harinams on the streets of London, England. People liked it, even though it was a very strange sight. People with shaved heads and wearing pink bed sheets and whatever they thought. They liked it. They were entertained. And then I realized that Prabhupada was telling that story because he wanted us to realize that even though we might be shy and unwilling to do this kind of thing, that people would still like it. So that was a sort of indirect instruction. The plays he talked about first, but then he told that story to make it a little bit more understandable or doable. Yes?
When Srila Prabhupada first went to New York, he was on his own, he had very little property. For me to do something like that seems inconceivable, though. Just go to a place where no one knows me. And what do you think motivated him? What do you think kept him going?
Well, what he says, the thing that motivated him was that he was asked by his Guru Maharaj to spread Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking language. And Prabhupada deduced, after his Guru Maharaj had departed, that the United States was the place where English was spoken, and it was the most powerful and influential country at that time in the world. And his thinking was that if I get those people, if I preach to those people, and even get one of them to adopt Krishna consciousness, that person would be very influential and would influence the rest of the country and the world. And that's actually what happened. And that was the motivation, because he was asked to spread Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking language. And he figured out that the best way to do that is to go to the United States, which is probably one of the most sinful places in the world, but it's also one of the most popular places in the world. So I think that was the motivation. And he said, in one of his lectures, he said that I was asked to do something but I thought it was impossible. He thought it was an impossibility at first. That's what he heard. But he said that, but I still was enthusiastic. I had enthusiasm. And it's that carried me through. He was enthusiastic to carry out the order, even though he didn't necessarily think he was going to amount to anything. So even though he had dreams of what would happen in the future, he also had once, I think you know about this, he had gone to the lower Manhattan where the boats dock, and he asked where the next boats were leaving for India. So he thought at one point that it was an impossible dream, but he stuck with it somehow or other. I don't know what happened with the boats, but anyway, he stayed with it, and now, 55 years or so later, it's become a success. Well, far beyond, and he said it was far beyond what he dreamed of. He was kind of chuckling to himself. And I think he really did become something much greater than he ever dreamed of. And in Yadavar's film, one of the professors who's speaking about the devotees says that he saw a little placard on the Matchless Gift Store in the window that said International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And he was kind of dismissive about that because he thought, here's a little insignificant storefront on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and he's calling it the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But it actually happened. So the dream, the impossible dreams, actually came true. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're here today, because the dream manifested. And we're convinced that there is a spiritual world. I don't want...
Maybe read your offering, please, for us.
It's not very good offering.
Maharaj, you're always interesting, doesn't matter.
Well, this
very
one
nice. There you go.
Thank you.
Please read.
I didn't bring the book. Maybe you can find it in there. Oh, by the way, did I give that sheet out? It had the photograph, I think? Yeah. Somewhere. It's not even there. Maybe they'll be lucky and it won't even be in there.
Well, it's LM. So
Here, you're in alphabetical.
Non-GBC sannyasis, right?
Yeah, no, maybe there's a special section. Look in the index. It's maybe in the index if it's there. Well, if we find it, eventually I'll read it.
Should be after L, isn't it?
Yeah, should be.
And then it goes to
Anyway, it
P.
goes to P. So anyways, so Krishna had a better plan.
Well, thank you, Maharaj. Very nice to hear how Srila Prabhupada can empower in a way that is very consequential to the development of the Hare Krishna movement. Thank you, Maharaj.
Oh, that was so wonderful. Thank you, Prabhuji. Can we share the next video? Empowered Acharya. Thank you.
I was attacked by heart attack while on the sea twice. The pain was so severe, I thought I'm going to die.
I'm a survivor. I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna work harder.
I would ask him, why are you running this? Why don't you stop it?
I was very much afraid on the third night that if this night also again some pain like that comes, then I will die.
Although Srila Prabhupada was going through a lot of pain because of 2 heart attacks, still he was determined, knowing that Lord Shri Krishna has taken charge.
I'm a survivor. I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna work harder. I'm a survivor. I'm
1922, I met my Guru Maharaj.
Lion Guru. This is how people used to call Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada.
At that time, I was quite a young man. I met my Guru Maharaj through the exigency of my intimate friend.
Abhay, let's go to see this great Vaishnava. He is a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya.
Oh no, I know all these sadhus. I am not going.
No, Abhay, we must go. We have to go. Come.
On the first visit, he asked me, educated boys like you should go to foreign countries and preach. So I replied that we are foreign-dominated nation, India. We'll hear about our message. My Guru Maharaj, he convinced me that dependence, independence, they are temporary. But we are concerned with the eternal benefit of the humankind. Because we belong to a Vaishnava family, so I was very much pleased that here is a personality who is going to preach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gospel. At the last moment also, just a fortnight before his passing away, he wrote me the same thing, that he should try to preach this gospel among the persons who are conversant in English language.
Srila Prabhupada read his letter again and again, and this time he was certain what he should do to please his spiritual master. In 1944, Srila Prabhupada starts a magazine called Back to Godhead, in which he highlights the suffering of the modern civilization, which seems to be wanting kingdom of God but without God. Srila Prabhupada tried different ways and means to execute the orders of his spiritual master, but he did not receive any encouragement in India whatsoever. As years pass by, Abhay decides to move to Vrindavan. He takes sannyas, and now he is known as A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami.
At that time there was no sale of Back to Godhead. I was publishing about 1,000 copies. And distributing. No, there was no income. I was spending 300, 400 rupees. In the beginning, it appears to be very bitter. When I took sannyas, when I was living alone, I was feeling very bitter. Sometimes I was thinking whether I had done wrong by accepting. So now when I was publishing this Back to Godhead from Delhi, one day one bull thrust me. And I fell down on the footpath. got severe injury. I was alone. So I was thinking, what is this? And so I had many days of very tribulations.
So many difficulties, so many challenges. Srila Prabhupada started thinking, where will I get strength to spread the Sankirtana movement? Srila Prabhupada was not willing to give up, as the order of his spiritual master was his life and soul. He starts translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, which he knew would one day change the face of the world.
Then when I wrote book Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto was finished, and I first of all published my first part of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then I published second part also. So after publishing 3 parts, then automatically Guru Maharaj gave me indication that now you can start forever. And then I decided to take up the responsibility of my Guru Maharaj. The dream was, I must come here. The dream was that Krishna, in his many forms, So when I was on the sea at Boston Port, I was thinking that I have come here, I do not know what is the purpose. I was not very much hopeful.
In January this year, I did ayahuasca with a shaman from Colombia. Now, for those of you
because it is very difficult task. Anyway, let me try. I had only a few books and 40 rupees, Indian 40 rupees. And I was maintaining myself by selling these books for 1 year. There was no friend. I was living in an apartment with great difficulty. Still, I did not know how to pay next month's rent. The whole stock and my typewriter, my table cloth, everything was stolen. In this way, I became very much depressed. And I was going to the shipping company when the next ship is going to India. Then I thought, let me wait for some time more, then I shall return back. But my Guru Maharaj, he wanted this. It is not that he is dead and gone. That is not spiritual understanding. Even ordinary living being, he does not die. Nahanate handamane sari. And what to speak of such exalted, authorized personality? But I had full faith that my Guru Maharaj is with me. I never lost this faith, and this is fact. I never feel that I am alone. If we keep to the body, to the words of spiritual master, then we remain very fixed up. It doesn't matter. So, don't be afraid of tribulation. Go forward. Krishna will give you protection. That is Krishna's promise in the Bhagavad Gita. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranasati. You can declare throughout the whole world that my devotees will never be vanquished. You can declare that. People are suffering.
Hottest month in recorded history.
Australia sweltered through its hottest spring on record.
The phenomenon was a short-term trigger to a long-term global warming caused by human activity.
Climate change is now affecting every country on every continent.
This Krishna consciousness movement must be spread. Let us go on fighting with Krishna consciousness. There is no disappointment. Just some hours. We can fight and chant Hare Krishna. Then everything goes. You cannot stop fighting.
So I started in 1966 lecturing in a storefront and living in that apartment in 26 2nd Avenue. Then gradually these boys, American boys and girls began to come. Then I started my kirtan in Tompkinson Square. More and more, these young Americans, they came to me.
I began to chant this Hare Krishna mantra. I was chanting there for 3 hours with a little small mridanga. And these boys, American boys, they assembled and gradually they joined. And it is increasing. First of all, it was started in New York. Then we started our branch in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in Santa Fe. In Buffalo, then here. In London Times there was an article. They said that Krishna chanting startles London.
finally he did it. Srila Prabhupada meets with unprecedented success. When asked the reason, the cause of his success, Srila Prabhupada describes, "My only credit is that I tried to present the Bhagavad Gita as it is. I did not adulterate it. Also, I tried my best to sincerely follow the orders of my spiritual master." Acharyas never die. They live forever and inspire millions through their teachings and divine instructions.
What happens to the movement when you die? I'll never die.
Thank you, Kadambana Prabhu. Such a nice, very emotional, moving film. It's a short film with so much message. Thank you for sharing.